Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to be unveiling an initiative that spans multiple teams in the Polkadot ecosystem that's funded by the Web3 Foundation to make Polkadot the leader of ESG on chain. This is going to be an opportunity for parachain teams to come together to demonstrate technical innovation and leadership in a way that simply can't be matched by other blockchain ecosystems. Nope. There we go. No?
One more.
Apologies. There we go. Apologies. Our story begins by understanding that parachains on Polkadot have the unique quality of being fee optional. When you win a parachain slot on Polkadot, what you're really winning is 2 years of decentralized computation capacity. In other words, Polkadot is providing validators for your chain for 2 years. One of the interesting downstream effects of this is that you actually don't have to pay any transaction fees on your blockchain at all. All blockchains connected to Polkadot and Kusama are actually technically fee optional. If you've used any of the chains in the Polkadot or Kusama ecosystems, you're probably aware that the chains are still charging a really small microtransaction fee. And the reason for this is that if you make it free to interact with your blockchain, people are going to spam it. They're going to try to break your blockchain. So by providing a microtransaction fee, you're actually providing a disincentive for people to attack your network. However, this brings up an interesting question. If these blockchains are still collecting these microtransaction fees, but they don't actually need to be there, then where are these funds going? Traditionally, other blockchain networks collect these transaction fees and pay them to validators in order to incentivize them to run nodes on their network. But on Polkadot, Polkadot takes care of those validators for you. So the answer is twofold. These fees are going to collator nodes, which are basically the nodes that are proposing blocks for your chain, and they're also accumulating on-chain treasuries. We're here today to make a proposal to make the transaction fees that are simply sitting on chain's treasuries right now actually work for us, to be a growth factor for the ecosystem and leverage its unique qualities in a way that other blockchain ecosystems can't. The proposal today is to take those transaction fees and to convert them to carbon credits. So what is Sequester? Sequester is a suite of technologies that's going to make it so easy for blockchains to convert their transaction fees into carbon credits that it's going to take less than 1 day of development time for you to do so. In other words, the development cost should not be a reason that we're not engaging with these transaction fees and putting them to good use. For those of you who aren't intimately familiar with carbon credits and what they do, why they're important, and why they'd be the best use for these funds, I'm going to introduce Adam Carver, the CEO of Bitgreen, which is a custom layer 1 blockchain network in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems, whose goal is to bring carbon credits on chain in a sustainable manner.
Thanks, man. Hey, everyone. I'm Gavin Wood, CEO of Bitgreen. It was a long flight from New York last night. I also go by Adam. My team and I have been building a parachain, an application-specific parachain within the Polkadot ecosystem that focuses on 3 areas: sustainability, innovation, corporate ESG, that's environmental, social governance, as well as an investment platform for investing in green finance. We're doing this because there's a massive untapped opportunity within sustainability development for real-world applications ranging from corporate, philanthropic, and private markets. When the Web3 Foundation reached out to us several months ago to let us know there was another team looking to innovate on sustainability within the Polkadot ecosystem, we were excited to call them up and then see where the areas of collaboration would be. The proposal that you're going to hear today from Brendan and me is a first step for the ecosystem to try to establish its leadership within sustainability innovation throughout the Web3 space. But this is only the first step, and there will be many more opportunities to come. Anyway, yesterday I was in New York City. I sized up the opportunity for sustainability innovation, and I also introduced what's at stake for Polkadot. And today we're going to discuss what this proposal actually means for you. And there I am. Let's keep going. Very quickly, what's Bitgreen? So we're a year-old parachain project. We'll be going through a parachain auction later this year, so keep your eyes peeled. We're part of the Substrate Builders program. We develop Web3 applications for sustainability and ESG. Our goal is to be the highest quality marketplace for green financings, as well as tokenizing and project financing carbon credit development. But a higher goal, or actually I'd say a more practical goal, is that we exist to facilitate your entry into these sustainability markets. We're trying to help you extend your existing operations into real-world markets that tackle sustainability. What we've done is we've built a parachain that is crafted in order to leverage the governance and tokenomics to incentivize the type of activity and behavior that we want to see bridged to the real world, which is sustainability behavior. And then we built a few starter apps to get the ecosystem going at top. One is commodity markets that relate to ecosystem credits like carbon credits and biodiversity, as well as a technical framework for having a decentralized digital ecosystem for green investing. So the good news for all of us is that Bloomberg reported several months ago that Polkadot has the lowest footprint amongst all other layer ones. So we're off on a great start. And there's the article. The issue is that other chains are fast on our heels, and if we're not careful or intentional about actually extending our advantage, then we could get passed by. So you see here, a month and a half ago, Polygon announced a $20 million pledge, not merely to offset its carbon emissions, but also to invest in new innovation and research and to extend its community within sustainability innovation on Web3. We see the same with Near. Also with the Ripple, 3 weeks ago announced a $100 million investment and pledge to sustainability innovation. And we see this from other chains like Algorand, Celo obviously, and clearly with the Ethereum network moving to the merge, there's a lot of activity happening right now in Web3 related to sustainability. So very quickly, what is a carbon credit? Well, one carbon credit equals the right to emit 1 ton of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And what purpose do these carbon credits actually serve? 3 purposes primarily. Number 1, it's to finance conservation projects, as well as carbon removal technology, which is very expensive. But we're at a point right now with climate change where we not only need to arrest the destruction of the environment and stop emitting more carbon dioxide into the air, we need to be investing in radical technology that's just off the shelf now to actually remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When you purchase carbon credits, that money goes toward conservation, carbon removal, and in many cases, community-led stewardship. Most of that money is supposed to be earmarked to go to communities and indigenous groups who live on delicate lands and preserve that land as part of their heritage. It also enables them to be economically empowered so that they don't feel the need to sell that land to palm oil plantations, illegal loggers, or illegal miners. This is a critical way to empower these communities and help them build schools, roads, hospitals, and other infrastructure. A major purpose of the carbon credit market is to create cost parity for a company who is looking to either offset its credit emissions by buying this credit or modernizing its infrastructure and machinery. That's the key here. It's estimated that in order to motivate companies to modernize their machinery, the price parity point is somewhere around $80 to $90, or some estimates have that at $100 per metric ton of carbon. Right now, carbon credits trade at about $10. So the idea is for the carbon credit price to appreciate to the point where it makes more economic sense for companies to modernize its machinery than it is for them to offset by buying carbon credits. Bitgreen will have a marketplace that introduces and markets the details of each of these projects, capturing the project details, its legal structure, rich media, as well as trying to tell the true human story and essence of these projects so that we can market those to a global audience. A great example of a project that we're working on right now, we've partnered with an indigenous group in Peru that represents 8% of the indigenous population of South America. They are the legal guardians of a huge tract of Amazonian rainforest, continuously under threat from illegal loggers, palm oil plantations, and miners. They're constantly under threat of intimidation. We are financing a program to help them go through a legal process to establish their legal title over the land and then issue credits for the carbon and the biodiversity being conserved in that area of the Amazon. And another project we're working on is a $100 million renewable energy facility in sub-Saharan Africa, in a country where 75% of the people live without electricity. And they use wood to burn for fuel, to heat cook stoves, and to provide light. These are the type of projects that are the very definition of impact. And that's where the money goes when you purchase a carbon credit. So the opportunity, I'm going to blow through these. We can do this 100 times better on Polkadot than on any other chain. We have application-specific parachains. We have secure interchange messaging, low nominal gas fees. We have decentralized, secure scalability. And most of all, we have proof of stake as our native consensus method. We have the opportunity to collaborate and coordinate information better than any other top-down layer one. No other platform, certainly not a smart contract platform, can compete if Polkadot decided, if we as a community make the decision and devote ourselves to committing to this project and then spending additional resource budget on developing sustainability innovation on Web3. Take it from Chamath. The world's first trillionaire will be made in climate change. And I'm going to turn it over to you. There we go. Just keep going.
Cool. So we're here today as well, thank you, Adam, to introduce Sequester and the functionality that we'll bring. I'm Brendan. I'm one of the co-founders of Sequester. And as I mentioned earlier, we're introducing a package to make it so easy to convert your transaction fees into carbon credits that development time is not going to be the reason why this doesn't happen. So what functionality does Sequester need to handle? First of all, it needs to help you calculate your transaction fees. In order to send a percentage of your transaction fees and convert them to carbon credits, you need to know how much was collected in carbon credits over a period of time. Secondly, we need to handle exchanging these funds into carbon credits. And finally, we need to retire the underlying asset that represents the carbon credit on chain. Behind me is a representation of what this will actually look like in the ecosystem. This is a two-part functionality. The first will be a pallet that goes live on chains and that sums the transaction fees and sends them to a common good chain that aggregates these fees and then handles the swap with a DEX and retirement with the Bitgreen chain. This could feasibly be done directly through a pallet, but the downside of doing that is that if you have all of the chains initiating the swap from a pallet directly, what you're going to have happen is that over time, as the pallet gets upgraded and new functionality comes online, some of the chains are going to upgrade to the new version of the pallet, some of the chains are going to stay on the old version of the pallet, and you're going to end up with a legacy network of support that you need to support from the DEX side that's going to be a nightmare. By funneling all of these transactions through a single chain, through the common good chain, it allows us to retain flexibility and upgradability moving forward. I want to unpack the phrase carbon neutral for a second, because if you've heard of carbon credits before, you've probably heard of this idea of carbon neutrality. And the idea of carbon neutrality is that an entity, through its operations, emits some amount of carbon into the atmosphere and then purchases carbon credits that represent a reduction of those same emissions to make it so that your net emissions as an entity are zero. But when we're facing a $50 trillion problem, which is kind of the market opportunity that's going to be needed to turn the tide on climate change, being carbon neutral just isn't good enough. Carbon neutrality is a great first step for any ecosystem to take, and it's an important one to get your foot in the door. But we really need to be thinking about how to be climate positive. And the cool thing about doing this with transaction fees is that if you actually use transaction fees on a blockchain to fund climate positive activities, what ends up happening is you align the incentives of your blockchain and the growth of your blockchain with outside entities who want to see your blockchain succeed. All of a sudden, anybody building on your blockchain that brings transactions to the ecosystem is doing something good for the world. Anybody interacting with your blockchain is doing something good for the world because they're taking a portion of their transaction fee and adding it to this pile of funds that's going to be converted to carbon credits. This wouldn't really mean anything if this functionality wasn't actually used by teams. So we're really excited to announce that all of the teams behind us, including some of the heaviest hitters in the ecosystem, Akala, Astar, Interlay, Bifrost, and Kilt, are all excited to work with us to integrate this functionality if their community decides that this is something they'd like to do via referendum. This decision can and should be made in a decentralized fashion, but we're really excited to see this list grow and to work with more teams moving forward. How to help us? Reach out. If you're building a chain in the ecosystem, let us know. We want to make sure this functionality works for you, that it will cover your use case. You can support the Common Good Parachain proposal that we're going to have later this year. The palette has been funded by the Web3 Foundation. We've created an initial version of it. But we're going to put out a proposal later this year for the Common Good chain, and you can be an ambassador to your local community. Feel free to contact us at any of these locations. And if we're building a new economic system here with blockchain, we might as well build one that properly values carbon. It's a unique opportunity to do something on the scale that's actually needed for the problem that climate change represents. So we hope that you'll stay with us. Goodbye to carbon and hello to sequester. Thank you.
Goodbye to carbon and hello to sequester. What about Bitgreen? Hello to Bitgreen.
We gave him the title on this one.
Great. We have a few questions. Here. Oh, excuse. So actually, Brendan, you touched on this when you talked about carbon neutral in the presentation. But can you explain the difference between low carbon footprint of Polkadot and carbon neutral, what Near is claiming they are?
Yeah, so having a low carbon footprint, really what you're saying is that you're not emitting as much. People understand Bitcoin to have a high carbon footprint and proof of stake chains to have a lower carbon footprint. But what that's really meaning is how much are you contributing to the problem? That's not a good enough framing of the problem, right? Even being carbon neutral, like we said, it's a good first step. You're saying, I'm not contributing to the problem. I'm not a part of the problem. But what we really need is for people to step up and say, hey, we're a part of the solution, right? When you're dealing with a problem on this scale, you need people to actually be a part of the solution. And on Polkadot, we have the opportunity to do this by taking these transaction fees that are just sitting in on-chain treasuries and not being really used. We can leverage these to actually become climate positive in a really, really unique way. And it's something that just can't be done by other ecosystems. It's because of Polkadot's shared security that we can actually do this. And it can't just be copied by other chains. It's a unique feature of the ecosystem, and we should be accentuating that by putting it to good use and helping it to drive growth.
Great. And would these projects allow Polkadot to be carbon negative or carbon neutral?
So it would be carbon negative, but I think Adam likes the framing here of you can't take on a problem that's $50 trillion in size while being negative. So we can frame it as climate positivity. Anything to add, Adam?
Yeah, no, that was actually a really great way to put it. Thanks for characterizing how I often respond. Climate change, even if we hold aside climate change, like we here in this room are building innovation to grow the ecosystem. Right, we're developing change and dApps to acquire users, to inspire people, to bridge digital technology and real world, to evolve the real world through technology. You can't do that by starting with the concept or the bar of let's just be negative or let's be like net zero as our aspiration. We're not going to achieve anything significant if we do that. So this whole concept of being carbon negative, right, to me just feels like I want to shower it off. We need to be thinking more aspirationally than that and more ambitiously. And the way to do that is to think beyond just offsetting your emissions so that you're not part of the problem. It's taking some of the transaction fees from these parachains and putting that into a treasury or other resources where we are financing innovation, new projects on literally using it as catalytic capital within the Polkadot ecosystem so that as a community we can be placing many, many, many experimental bets, any of which can have asymmetric venture returns to the upside.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The last question here is they want to know how can they stay up to date with the project? Is there a roadmap or where can they see the status and what's to come?
We're going to be announcing it later today. So we will push it out from our respective Twitter channels as well as the Parody channel, or the Decoded channel as well. Moreover, there's going to be a proposal that goes out to the network, which you can read. And then the way that the sequence is functioning is that Brendan and his co-founder Ethan have been talking to each individual parachain, and then those parachains will return to their own respective communities for a governance vote. This is like purely grassroots initiative that's helped be supported by the Web3 Foundation, but it's primarily coming from the community itself. So each parachain can choose to participate at its own level and magnitude.
And if you want to contribute, be a leader in your community. Push for the proposal on your local chain. That's how we're going to affect change. We can't do it in one-on-one conversations. We need you to step up and to be an advocate for your local community to use it as a lever for change.
Yeah, literally contact us. That's why we wake up in the morning. Our projects exist to help facilitate your entry and participation in this market. Not just carbon credits, but all the other good stuff, like green supply chain, green banking for the Akala team, maybe green Bitcoin for the Interlay team. Supply chain, chain of custody will be enormous within sustainability in the next 20 years. That's a great project for the Origin Trail team. And I'm sure many of your other projects, which I haven't met yet, also have some application to sustainability in the real world, because it will touch all 8 billion people on this planet and all of the industries in which your chains and dApps are developing products for. So contact us.
Excellent. What's your phone number?
Yeah, 555-555-5555.
All right.
Be here. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Brendan. So good to have you guys here, and that was a wonderful presentation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.